I need to check my day 1 notes before I go any further, because what I watched at Browns camp today is exactly the kind of thing that decides seasons before they even start. So let me just say it plainly first, then we'll get into all the details together, because there's a lot to unpack. Cleveland opened training camp today, and every single rep at quarterback carried weight because we all know what's riding on this. This isn't just another practice. This is the beginning of a battle that's going to define the entire outlook of this franchise, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. Deshaun Watson took the first snaps with the starters, running 7-on-7 and then full team drills, and by the end of the session, 2 of his throws had ended up in the wrong hands. Denzel Ward picked one off, and the newly signed corner Demario Mathis grabbed the other. Meanwhile, on the other side of this competition, Shedeur Sanders quietly put together a nearly clean day, connecting on 16 of 19 attempts. Most of his completions were short, quick-hitting throws, but efficiency is efficiency. And on day 1, the numbers don't lie, even if the full story behind them is a little more complicated than a stat line suggests. Now here's something worth mentioning before we go further, because context changes everything in situations like this. Dylan Gabriel also threw an interception today, something that got lost a little in the shuffle when people were only talking about Watson and Sanders. Gabriel took 9 attempts, and Taylon Green got 5 reps of his own, which honestly might be the most extended look either of them has gotten since the spring. That tells me the coaching staff is being intentional about spreading these reps around right now, giving every arm in that quarterback room a real chance to show something before the real evaluation window tightens up. So let's slow down for a second, because I want you to actually feel what happened with Watson's first interception, not just hear the box score version of it. Cleveland ran a play-action naked bootleg, the kind of design that's supposed to get a quarterback out on the edge with room to throw. Watson rolled out, and Denzel Ward, who has been one of the most disciplined, instinctive corners in this league for years, read it, closed the gap, and made a play most defensive backs simply don't have the closing speed to make. When Todd Monken broke this down afterward, he didn't throw his quarterback under the bus. In fact, he said the opposite. He said, if you're a split second late releasing that football against a player with Ward's recovery speed, you're going to pay for it. And he made it clear that in his eyes, this wasn't really a case of poor decision-making. It was closer to a defensive back simply winning a rep that a lot of corners around the league wouldn't have won. He even said, standing right there watching it unfold, that he personally would have pulled the trigger on that same throw. That's a pretty significant thing for a head coach to admit publicly, and I think it says a lot about how he's trying to manage this quarterback competition. He's not looking to publicly bury either guy over one bad bounce. He's trying to build confidence into both of these quarterbacks while still holding them accountable, and that's a much harder needle to thread than people realize. The second interception is where things get a little murkier, and honestly, a little more concerning if you're in Watson's corner of this debate. This one came off a dig route, an in-breaking pattern that requires very precise timing between quarterback and receiver. According to Monken, Watson simply got the ball out late. Whether that was a hesitation in his read or something happening in the pocket that forced him to shift his platform, the coaching staff still needs to go back and study the film to know for sure. But what we do know is that Cleveland had a defender playing what's called an overlap technique, essentially sitting in a passing lane specifically designed to bait a quarterback into thinking a window is open when it isn't. And that defender made the veteran play, stepping in front of the route and taking it away. 2 interceptions on day 1, 2 very different explanations. One where the coach openly says he wouldn't have changed a thing, and one where the timing simply broke down. That's the reality of where Watson stands heading into night 2 of this competition. And I don't think either interception alone should define the entire storyline, but together, they do add a little bit of pressure heading into tomorrow. Now let's talk about Dylan Gabriel for a second, because his interception deserves its own breakdown too. His pick came on a back shoulder throw targeting the boundary, which, if you know anything about quarterback mechanics, is one of the toughest throws in football to time correctly. You're throwing behind your receiver on purpose, trusting him to feel the ball and adjust his body at the perfect moment, all while the corner is running stride for stride, trying to read your eyes. It's a low margin for error throw, even for veteran quarterbacks who have been running these route concepts for years. So while it went down as an interception in the box score, Monken's tone when discussing it wasn't harsh. It was more matter-of-fact, framing it as a difficult rep against a difficult coverage look, not a red flag about Gabriel's development. And that brings us to the name everyone in Berea, and honestly everyone around the entire NFL right now, cannot stop talking about. Shedeur Sanders. 16 completions on 19 attempts. That's the kind of clean, mistake-free day that gets people buzzing, and I understand why. But before we get carried away calling this some enormous statement performance, we need to be honest about what today's install actually was. Monken explained that the entire offensive session was built around the quick passing game, along with situational third and medium concepts. In other words, this wasn't a day designed for shot plays and hero ball throws downfield. It was built around getting the football out fast, timing, rhythm, layered spacing concepts, the type of install that tends to produce clean stat lines almost by design. So when people say Shedeur was lighting it up with a flurry of short completions, that's not an accident or some kind of magic. That's the offense doing exactly what it was drawn up to do on day one. But here's the thing, and I want to give credit where it's absolutely due. Even inside a scheme built for short, manageable completions, there's still a difference between executing clean and executing sloppy. Sanders didn't just check the ball down over and over. He also uncorked one legitimate downfield connection, pushing the ball vertically and connecting on a shot play that had real juice behind it. So while the volume of his day was built around quick rhythm throws, he still flashed the arm talent and the vertical trust that people have been questioning about him coming out of the pre-draft process. That's not nothing. That's a quarterback showing he can operate within structure while still finding ways to push the ball down the field when the opportunity presents itself. So now we sit here on day one, trying to figure out what this all means heading into day two, where the tables are about to turn. Monken confirmed something that I think is a massive storyline heading into tomorrow's practice. Sanders is going to get his turn running with the starters. If you remember, this is exactly how it played out in minicamp, Watson getting first crack, then Sanders getting his shot the very next outing. It's clearly intentional, clearly structured, and clearly designed to give both quarterbacks equal exposure running with the number one group before real opinions start to solidify. And that leads us into probably the most important thing Monken said all day, something that I think tells you everything about how seriously this coaching staff is treating this competition. He was asked directly if he had some internal deadline in his head for when this quarterback battle needs to be resolved, even if he wasn't ready to share that number publicly, and his answer was blunt. By the time the regular season opener rolls around, this decision has to be made. There's no more room to let it linger. He even said the real deadline is actually earlier than that, somewhere in the week leading up to that first game, because eventually you have to commit, you have to build a game plan, and you have to give one guy the keys. Between now and then, though, he made it clear that the preseason games, along with a joint practice against the Buffalo Bills, are going to be the closest thing to real competitive evaluation they're going to get before that decision comes down. That joint practice detail is honestly something people are sleeping on right now. Practicing against your own defense every day creates a certain level of familiarity. Lining up against a completely different opponent, different disguises, different pressure packages, that's going to reveal a lot more about who's truly ready. Now here's where this story gets, in my opinion, genuinely fascinating, because Monken didn't just talk numbers and rotations. He got into the psychology of quarterback development, and I think this section says more about how this competition is actually going to be decided than any stat line from day one ever could. He was asked about the modern reality of practice now, with players filming clips on their phones constantly, plays getting circulated and picked apart before the coaching staff even finishes reviewing the film themselves. And he was asked how much weight he actually puts on interceptions like the ones Watson threw today. His answer, to me, revealed exactly the kind of environment he's trying to build inside that quarterback room. He explained that on install days like today, focused entirely on the quick passing game, There's naturally going to be some organic conversions into different looks, some coverage disguises that create funky outcomes. But more importantly, he talked about wanting his quarterbacks operating with total command of the offense right now, meaning full authority to change plays at the line, full trust to identify a mismatch and attack it, even if that occasionally means eating a mistake in the process. And this is the part that really stuck with me. He specifically referenced wanting to let his quarterbacks push boundaries right now, during camp, when the stakes are lower, so they learn exactly where the line is between aggressive and reckless before the games actually count. He drew a direct parallel to something that's been circulating recently from Aaron Rodgers, who talked publicly about how valuable it was earlier in his own career when coaches told him it was okay to take chances in practice, because that's precisely how a quarterback learns where those invisible boundaries actually sit. You can't develop that instinct by playing scared. You develop it by testing limits when the consequences are low, so that when the lights come on for real, the decision-making has already been calibrated. And then Monken said something that I think every fan, every coach, every parent, honestly anyone who has ever tried to develop talent in any field needs to hear. He said if you punish a quarterback every single time he takes a risk, if you get on him, if you embarrass him after every aggressive decision, he's eventually going to stop taking those chances altogether. He's going to shrink. He's going to retreat into himself, playing conservative, checking the ball down out of fear rather than confidence. And that is the last thing any coaching staff wants heading into a critical, high-pressure quarterback evaluation. You want aggression tempered by structure, not aggression replaced by hesitation. Of course, he was quick to note the obvious caveat. You can't have your quarterbacks losing you games with careless decisions. There's a difference between calculated risk and recklessness, and part of coaching this competition is helping both Watson and Sanders understand exactly where that dividing line sits. But right now, in these early days of camp, before the real bullets start flying in preseason and the regular season, he wants both of his quarterbacks operating aggressively, pushing the tempo, taking their shots, and learning through experience rather than fear. So where does that leave us heading into day 2? Honestly, right where this competition needed to be. Watson opened camp with the starters and dealt with 2 uneven moments, one that his own coach essentially defended, one that exposed a real timing issue worth monitoring. Gabriel flashed continued development on a legitimately difficult throw, even if the outcome didn't go his way. And Sanders delivered the kind of clean, controlled, occasionally explosive performance that's going to have people talking all the way until tomorrow's practice report drops. Tomorrow, the spotlight shifts. Sanders takes over with the starters, and we get to see how he performs with that increased pressure, that increased scrutiny, and that increased opportunity. Watson, meanwhile, gets to step back, watch the tape, digest today's mistakes, and figure out how he wants to respond when his next opportunity comes. This entire quarterback competition is going to be a story that unfolds in small, incremental moments just like this, day by day, rep by rep, decision by decision. And I'll be right here breaking down every single one of them with you, because if day 1 told us anything, it's that this battle in Cleveland is nowhere near settled, and it's about to get a whole lot more interesting.